I'm in Massapequa, Long Island, outside the home of the accused Gilgo Beach serial killer. And up until Thursday, the most famous accused murderer from Massapequa was Alec Baldwin. And this is how you know Long Island and Massapequa are a nice place to live. That there is a serial killer who lives down the block, and there are people walking around wondering, hey, any chance he's going to be selling his house?
The Tom Kelly Show. Everybody, I want you to go to the Tom Kelly Show. I want you all to know about the Tom Kelly Show.
So, trigger warning, spoiler alert. Oh my God, there's a serial killer in my neighborhood. You are experiencing the Tom Kelly Show. I can't tell you how many people emailed me and called me on Thursday when it was revealed that the accused Gilgo Beach serial killer was from my hometown of Massapequa, Long Island. Now, Massapequa, Long Island is a very big area, actually, a big area. I've become known on TikTok for making Massapequa jokes. Thank you, targeted media. I'm actually walking for a little bit around where the serial killer's house is. Unfortunately, the block is cut off to traffic and outsiders. There's a police officer blocking one side, and yeah, so it's Sunday morning, and police are still on the scene. So for those of you who don't know about the Gilgo Beach serial killer story, basically somebody kept killing sex workers, prostitutes, whatever word you want to use, and burying them in a beautiful piece of nature and beach where I like to do my beach walks. If you've been following the Tom Kelly Show throughout the pandemic and on my Instagram, it's an isolated area, and I've gotten in trouble for saying this, that Gilgo Beach and those beaches are a place where, you can bury a dead body. My aunt once yelled at me. I once did a Facebook status. This is where I would bury a body. Let's talk about it in a second. I'm right at the corner of Michigan and 2nd Avenue, and this man lived at the corner of Michigan and 1st. I'll show you some of the things that are going on. So here we go. This is sick that I'm even doing it. But you guys have asked me about it, and why not give my fans, friends, and followers what they want? I have walked down close to the crime scene. I'm at the corner of 1st and Michigan in Massapequa Park, and you talk about how it's a sleepy neighborhood, how the murderers are among us, how you never know what's happening in the houses near you. These are all redone, fancy Massapequa houses, and then his house is apparently in 1960 condition. He went to Berner High School, which is now a junior high, but he went to high school in Massapequa. He grew up in the area. One of the Baldwin brothers, one of the lesser Baldwins, issued a statement saying he was a normal guy in high school, or made a tweet saying he was a normal guy in high school. So you never know when something weird is happening around you. So, and I was just talking to some of the neighbors that, the guy kept to himself, blah, 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 that the guy, would be out on the porch, but didn't really talk to people. And, again, you talk about, criminals, you talk about, serial killers, and you talk about axe murderers. Not everybody. There's a great line in Star Trek from Captain Picard where the line is, "It's easy to spot a villain who twirls his mustache, Mr. Worf. It's the ones that linger among us are the ones we need to be wary of." And yeah, this might be one of those guys. I know someone who knew someone. Again, that's the weird thing with this whole journalism thing. Everybody knows someone who knows someone. It's all hearsay. There's a great New York Times profile on the alleged Gilgo Beach murderer, Rex Heuermann. By the way, that's a serial killer name, Rex Heuermann. But it's funny. I wanted to say this further away from the crime scene. I think there's a good chance the guy's found not guilty. Now, I'm not saying he's guilty. I'm not saying he's not guilty. If you read the research they did on the case, they sure have done a lot of homework trying to nail this guy. I mean, they got DNA from pizza boxes, DNA that they've been tracking his cell phone records. But remember, this is an 11-year-old cold case. And there have been podcasts on who could have done it. And at one point, the chief of Suffolk County Police was accused of being the Gilgo Beach murderer. And now you're getting into the whole thing of, wow, any lawyer who wants to defend Rex Heuermann, all they need to do is watch one of these 100 other documentaries and listen to one of these 100 other podcasts where, the what do you call them? The armchair sleuths have given every alternative theory to the crime. And if you're like one of those absolutists on justice like I am, if you're really a beyond a reasonable doubt guy, I mean, at one point, the chief of Suffolk County Police was accused of being the Gilgo Beach murderer, and now he's been arrested by the Suffolk County Police. All you need is one conspiracy theorist on the jury, and boom, this guy gets off. So that's why, we always do the old Star Jones joke of, you got to say allegedly. The alleged serial killer murderer allegedly murdered people at Gilgo Beach, allegedly buried the bodies there. And yeah, there you go. So I hope you guys don't mind just me walking around and just giving you the local flair for the neighborhood. This is a big case when you see parked right in front of where the news cameras are, 3 different police cars. You have the Nassau County cops, you have the New York State Police, and the Suffolk County cops. So that way each agency gets a little bit of their airtime. That, hey, we've all worked hard on this. There you go. Nassau, State, Suffolk. We're all a part of this. Another piece of local flair that I just got from just talking to the police. I don't know how many news. It was tough to track. Remember, I grew up around the Joey Buttafuoco story. And I don't want to talk too much about that except for how it affected me as a journalist. Like, I honestly, part of me feels like a sick bastard for walking around the neighborhood. Yeah, I feel like a sick bastard for walking around the neighborhood, doing a podcast, not even having a selfie stick to, talk about what's going on. Because growing up around that really did affect whether or not I wanted to be a journalist. Because, you would get into the thing of, there were real people, real kids, real families, real human beings in the house and outside the house that weren't attached to the crime. And, anyway, that affected me. Why am I doing it now? Because a guy, Mike Taibbi, he is the father of a Rolling Stone reporter, Matt Taibbi. And when I was an NBC page, he gave me a great piece of advice, which was, Tom, you have to understand why people find stories like these fascinating. So you get into true crime. Well, I just ran into 3 moms, my age moms. And they really came to just see the house. They didn't want to be on camera, blah, blah, blah. They did their walk instead of running, doing their run in Suffolk County. They visited their friend in Massapequa and did their power walk around this neighborhood. And you get into, why are people fascinated by true crime? And the real thing about true crime is, it could be us, it could be your neighbor, it could be this guy, it could be that guy, it could be the creepy guy across the street, but it could also be the rich billionaire. I mean, geez, look at the stuff Hunter Biden's been accused of lately, He sure sounds, that's the son of the president, and he may or may not be sleeping with hookers. Now, is that national news? And I'll tell you why it's a national story is because, again, it could be any of us. Oh, so the story I asked one of the cops was, I'm like, guys, was the block filled with news vans? Because that was the one big thing that I got when I grew up around the Joey Buttafuoco story was there was 1 mile of news vans. And the cop said, to be honest with you, I couldn't tell because there may not have been that much in the way of news vans and journalists, but that there was a crime scene investigation on, let's make it First Avenue. And there was a block party on 2nd Avenue. And it may not have been 2nd Avenue, but he said there was a crime investigation on 1st Avenue, and there was a block party a block away. So you couldn't tell who was who and what was what. And I think that's just a great analogy for how fragile society is. That we can seem normal and party on one block, and yeah, you don't know what kind of craziness is happening on the other. My deep thought about murderers and serial killers and life is how you don't know who's who and who's what. We all have secrets. And how do I know? Whenever somebody hands you their phone, they get nervous, like you're going to look at what apps they have and that you're going to look at their internet search history. Believe me, I don't give my phone to anybody. Not that I'm doing anything murdery, but you don't want to look icky or weird or, hey, why did you look up that? Hey, why did you look up that? We all have our secrets. The thing is, we all have secrets. The question is, how creepy are your secrets? How icky are your secrets? And, in this age of we put so much on Instagram, it's what's behind the facade. Like, I bumped into a woman who didn't want to be on camera, and her line was, he was very quiet, he kept to himself, but he brought his kids to the bus stop at one point, and that man may or may not have murdered at least 4 women. That's the other dad at the bus stop. Yeah, and then I just walked to the other side of the block. The police are checking traffic to make sure it's only the local people go down the block. I mean, geez, like right now, the poor neighbors, they're going through the stress of the guy who has lived across the street for possibly 60 years is a serial killer. And guess what, guys? We're going to make sure you have to check in to go onto the block. And we are going to make sure that people don't camp out on your lawns with cameras, kind of like what I'm doing. That happens every time there's a major crime or, thing like that. When you get into how Massapequa and Massapequa Park are any town USA, this guy lived 2 blocks away from an old elementary school and where I went to 7th grade. And that's now an elementary school. So yeah, the guy lived 2 blocks away from an elementary school and right next to an adorable dog. I love you, adorable dog. Thank you. Bye, Lucy. Hey, wait, no, it's okay, Lucy. Bye, Lucy. All right, you see that? But again, so Anytown, USA, the guy lived 2 blocks away from an elementary school and what used to be my junior high school back when I was in 7th grade. And an adorable dog named Lucy who just tried to sniff my balls. And this is how you know Long Island and Massapequa are a nice place to live. That there is a serial killer who lives down the block and there are people walking around wondering, hey, any chance he's going to be selling his house? So it's rainy and a mess, but I wanted to bring you down to Gilgo Beach where the murders allegedly happened and the bodies were definitely found. It's really hard to explain the magic and the isolation and the natural beauty and the national treasure or local treasure of Long Island's barrier beaches. It's really, there's 50 houses here, maybe, if that much. They're summer houses. They flood easily. I mean, it's just a little bit of a rainy day today and the highways down here are flooded and the beaches are sort of closed. It's really just surfers from the mainland and people who live in the summer community, which I think is really, inherited land leases, it just, whenever you come down here, it's always eerily quiet because it's, these were like fishing shacks that have been built up into nicer summer mansions. And there are some people who are still probably like this guy, Rex Heuermann, who've had houses they're old timers. There's a bit of an old-timey charm to the place. It's a very isolated and insular community. Do I know anybody who lives down there? No. The houses seem to be worth $800,000 and it's a land lease that might expire in another 60 years. So then boom, poof, the state could potentially take your investment back or the town could take the investment back. But that's just real estate news. The real thing you have to remember is, it's just me and the seagulls down here. I'll take you over to the ocean and just show you some of what it is. And, and I've made the joke before, Gilgo Beach or Jones Beach or Tobay Beach, the Long Island Barrier Islands. When we were kids, we would joke this would be where the mobsters would hide bodies. And I wanted to come down here to show you just how isolated and, how naturally beautiful this place is. It's only really rained for like 2 hours and half the place is flooded. But I'm gonna walk through the flood to just give you a sense of where the bodies were hidden. So I was just talking to a lifeguard down by the surf house who told me he grew up here and went to high school. He grew up in one of the 50 houses here in West Gilgo. And interesting, from Gilgo Beach, Long Island to the nearest high school where he was in the school district for, it was a 1 hour drive to go to high school from here. And, the interesting thing down here is he told me that one body was found there, and you can see the residential houses in the distance, and that the other, I believe it is 11 bodies, were found in different spots way down that way, on the bay and ocean side of Gilgo Beach. And I wanted to bring you down here to show you the isolation. I mean, God forbid something happens to me. I fall off this lifeguard stand. It's going to take a little while for someone to find me, and there is a vulnerability here. There's a beauty to it. I mean, especially when you're, if you're in the suburbs or in the city all day, to be able to come to this and to be able to look in all four directions and not see anybody for miles. I mean, look behind me. There is nobody here. It is 10:37 on a Sunday, and, it's just me and an iPhone. And I've always been cognizant of that, the beauty of isolation, and I think that's why this story resonates with people. It's not just the fact that it's an unsolved crime. It's not just the fact that, police chiefs were accused of being a part of it. It's that, isolation is a beautiful thing, and that, sometimes, like all beautiful things, they can just be perverted and ruined. And that's what this case and this story has meant to me. And that's why I'm fascinated with it. And of course, since I'm on the lifeguard chair and this is a comedy podcast, though it doesn't feel like one today, I have to do my Baywatch jumping off the lifeguard stand moment. Ready, 3, 2, and I landed on my knees, people. But hey, there's no one here except for you, to make fun of me. And I had to pause the tape to look up how many bodies have been found down here at Gilgo Beach. At least 10, according to one website, and we're only talking about 4 of the murders, 4 of the bodies. And again, you talk about the sad part of this case. Here I am talking about the accused murderer. Here I am talking about how it affects my neighborhood and property value, that the accused murderer lived in my town. Here I am talking about how the accused murderer has ruined my beautiful vacation spot. And it's only here at the end of the podcast that I'm thinking about the victims. Yeah, real women. I know one of the New York Times had a great profile on the victims. We always talk, this is where we buried the hookers. It's where we buried the prostitutes. Well, these were real women. What went wrong in their lives that they had to become sex workers? What? Yeah. What went wrong that they had to become sex workers? What went wrong that they came to this place all by themselves to deal with somebody who would betray them and kill them? And they are people with families, kids, brothers, sisters, moms, dads, and, whenever you watch a real crime thing, folks, maybe that's why I'm not always 100% into them, is I think we always lose sight of that, these real crimes, they're real. There's real people behind all of it. So I think that's a podcast. I apologize if this last part was windy. I know it was. And, you know, I hope I gave you a taste of what's going on in my hometown and here at Gilgo Beach. You know, and again, nice thing is, Alec Baldwin, no longer the creepiest murderer in Massapequa. And the nice thing about all this, Alec Baldwin, no longer the creepiest accused murderer in Massapequa. So, listen, this is a podcast about one comedian figuring out his life. If you liked this, hit subscribe. It's a very little adventure, and I'd love to have you a part of it. Show love where love can be shown. Comment, let me know what you think. And if you did listen to the podcast, comment on one of my social media posts with the word beach. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Twitter, Facebook, all as Tom Kelly Show. And until next time, folks, good night, Gilgo Beach. And look at that, a red flag.